Even though Disney has always had their problems, they used to be the gold standard, the place where magic was born and stories lived forever. But lately, it feels like that magic has been replaced. And guess who's picking up the pace? DreamWorks. While Disney keeps giving us flops like Wish and Strange World, DreamWorks is providing gems like Puss in Boots, The Bad Guys, and more. And here's the crazy thing. If Disney doesn't pivot soon, they won't just lose the box office, but the culture entirely. So what is the problem really? What are the things that DreamWorks does that Disney doesn't have the guts to do? To understand what DreamWorks does that Disney doesn't, we have to first look at something very important: characters, their development, and what they represent. When you watch animated movies long enough, you start to notice patterns. Some characters exist to do one job, and they keep doing that job until the credits roll. They make jokes, or give advice, or cheer the hero on. They stay the same, basically. Unfortunately, Disney does this a lot. Olaf is a good example. He talks, slips, sings, and makes the same kind of joke over and over.
Olaf, did Elsa build you?
Yeah, why?
Do you know where she is?
Fascinating. Yeah, why?
He does not really want anything beyond being liked, and nothing inside him ever changes. Even Disney's main characters have also been written to be one-dimensional, but we'll get to that shortly. As far as side characters go, DreamWorks shows us that you can, in fact, write them with depth, just like Donkey in Shrek. Right from the start, Donkey shows more than just comic relief by seeking connection. He follows Shrek into the swamp even though Shrek clearly wants to be alone. This shows Donkey's desire for friendship, and when Shrek reacts with anger or annoyance, Donkey doesn't just shut up, he keeps trying, showing persistence and vulnerability. Later, when Donkey and Shrek face the dragon, Donkey takes real risks to help save Fiona despite his fears. And when he finally finds love with the dragon, it's not forced because he uses his personality as a serial talkative to charm her.
But you must bleach or something, because that is one dazzling smile you got. And do I detect a hint of minty freshness?
But here's what really makes Donkey great. You see, even in quieter moments, like consoling Shrek and Fiona, Donkey listens, empathizes, and offers comfort. His humor here is still there, but it's tied to real emotion.
You're not that ugly. And where you are, I ain't gonna lie, you are ugly.
So these actions, seeking friendship, risking himself, loving and comforting, make him a fully rounded character, not just a gag machine. In Disney's world, Po from Kung Fu Panda would have been just a big fat panda who was there for comic relief. But DreamWorks expanded the possibilities with him. Po's journey was about self-validation, acceptance, and breaking from the norm. He was a big, fat, out-of-shape panda who, by the textbook, shouldn't have any business with Kung Fu. So Disney would probably have left him that way, because if they are not making one-dimensional characters, they are making them really useless, especially the male ones. We covered in a recent video how badly Disney has written men before. But here's what's insane. Even the women are not written like the women you and I know, or the ones that a young girl should aspire to. For example, Asha from Wish is built around one clear idea, that she is a good person, period. She is kind, hopeful, and wants to help her community. That is who she is in the first act, and that is who she is at the end. Things happen around her, but very little happens inside her. This is a main character, by the way. When she faces problems, the story keeps confirming that she was already right. Her beliefs never truly get tested, and she does not make a choice that costs her something personal. Sis stays steady, which makes her a very, very flat and completely boring hero. The movie didn't even have the moral decency to call out her entitlement. Remember when Asha asked Magnifico to grant her granddaddy's wish during an interview? Yep, it's like going for an interview and then telling your boss to give you some money to treat your sick mother. Asha couldn't even wait to get the job and earn her first salary. But then again, the movie was shit to begin with. Thankfully, DreamWorks likes to do something different. Female heroes like Tip from Home and Yi from Abominable feel so different because they have layers just like real people. Tip starts as a survivor, the only human to escape capture by the Boov. She shows more grit than most adults, initially treating the alien O with aggression and suspicion. Her depth comes from her desperate, singular drive to find her mother, proving she's just a fearless daughter who is willing to fight an entire alien race for what she cares about. Then you have Yi from Abominable. She is a workaholic because she's using busyness as a shield to hide from the pain of losing her father. She doesn't socialize much and refuses to play her violin for others because it's the only thing she has left of her dad. You can see that these girls are not one-dimensional heroes who want to save the day. Rather, they are complex kids with flaws, secrets, and real grief, making their journey and the eventual realization of their goals feel much more earned than a typical fairy tale. These two heroes also had to deal with something very important that Disney has become really terrible at depicting. A long time ago, in the land of animations, Disney used to understand the importance of a villain. These villains served as both obstacles and mirrors to the hero. They were iconic with the way they sounded, moved, the things they did, and the power they possessed. Even their theme songs left a lasting impression. But perhaps more importantly, through these villains, we learnt a lot of lessons. Scar taught us what jealousy can turn you into. He was also involved in something that only DreamWorks seems to be doing now, but more of that later. For now, back then, Jafar showed us what a lack of contentment and an obsession with power can lead to. Each villain reflected a real human flaw, and each one pushed the hero to face something true about themselves. So, when these villains fell, the lesson landed. But over time, something changed. Disney slowly stopped trusting villains. Instead of letting them challenge the hero, they turned them into twists, misunderstandings, or removed them completely. Raya and the Last Dragon turns its conflict into a lesson about trust. Encanto removes the villain entirely, while Strange World has a misunderstood antagonist. The crazy thing is that when Disney finally brings a villain back with King Magnifico, it was a massive dud.
I decide what everyone deserves.
But DreamWorks takes the opposite path. Their villains stick with you because they feel connected to the hero. They often make villains who serve as the dark reflection of the hero. Tai Lung and Po both want approval and to be seen as worthy. But while Po learns to look inward for those things, Tai Lung never does. This pattern shows up across Kung Fu Panda. Lord Shen has love and comfort, but still wants more. He wants power and proof that he is special. Then there's Kai, who wants to be remembered as the greatest. Oogway warns him that taking more leaves you with less, but Kai cannot stop. You see how each villain shows a different kind of hunger, yet together they teach the same lesson. Chasing external validation will only leave you with nothing. But DreamWorks knows how to add even more depth to its characters. What they did with Ramses in The Prince of Egypt is still unprecedented today. Ramses starts as a brother, rather than a monster. He loves Moses dearly and yearns for a kingdom they'd rule together. But there was a major problem. In the midst of all that brotherly love, he grows up afraid of being seen as an incompetent ruler, especially compared to his ancestors and particularly his father.
But one weak link can break the chain of a mighty dynasty.
That fear of being the weak link ends up hardening him, especially when his brother goes into exile. And from there, he continues deteriorating until he is a totally prideful ruler with no restraint. Even when he knows the cost, he cannot let go. The tragedy is that he never wanted to fight Moses, yet he cannot choose any other path. The movie never excuses him because he could have let go of his pride and chosen humility and kindness, yet you still feel a little sorry for him. However, there's another interesting aspect about DreamWorks villains that many overlook. They understand that villains can be funny without losing their bite.
Him? He's a panda. You're a panda. What are you gonna do, big guy? Sit on me?
But Tai Lung's humor didn't water down his wickedness. It certainly didn't stop him from almost killing Shifu. Then there's Jack Horner, who is loud, selfish, and jealous. He is absolutely funny, and in Disney's world, he would have probably just been that. Funny without posing a real threat. However, Jack is a scary, murderous psychopath.
You're not gonna shoot a puppy, are you, Jack?
Yeah, in the face. Why?
And speaking of Jack, do you see how Puss in Boots: The Last Wish was able to bring 3 completely different antagonists in one movie? You see, by the time you step back, the difference in villains between these two studios becomes clear. Disney often removes them to protect a message or push an agenda, whereas DreamWorks villains feel more real by showing what happens when fear, pride, or hunger go unchecked. They are more human, even when they are cruel, and because of that, the heroes grow in ways that actually stick. But having a great villain is only half the battle. To truly feel the stakes, we have to see these characters in moments that take our breath away. This is the part where Scar would come in again. You can almost feel it the first time you watch The Lion King. The stampede roars, dust kicks into the air, and Scar throws Mufasa off a cliff. Then there's Simba, who watches in horror as his father falls. He climbs down, coughing and calling out to him, and when he finds him, it is as we feared.
Dad, we gotta go home.
He nudges, tugs, shakes, anything to make his dad move, but Mufasa doesn't stir. Simba tries to call for help, but when nobody responds, he lies down beside his father, sobbing. Then Scar appears through the dust, but the pain, the loss, and the helplessness, Simba feels it all, and so do we. Disney didn't rush this moment. It made us sit in the grief, made us feel the weight of a life gone, and then let that absence shape everything that followed. Mufasa stays dead, and Simba carries that loss. The scene is painful because it is final and doesn't get cut. That's Disney at its best. They used to know how to let emotionally heavy scenes breathe. They knew that if you rush past fear, sadness, or grief, the moment loses its power. But things have changed. In recent years, Disney seems scared of letting the bad moments linger. And worse, even these moments hardly exist now. Strange World and Wish don't include any deaths that shock or unsettle us. In Encanto, the loss of the life of Pedro Madrigal only happened in a flashback and didn't mean much to us. Besides, Pedro's demise led to something positive, the Encanto. Then in Frozen, Elsa and Anna's parents die off-screen, which barely left a mark on the audience. But if Disney is not removing death scenes, they don't allow those who die to stay dead. When Sisu is shot and killed in Raya and the Last Dragon, the scene is not as emotional as it should have been. First, the score is not something that evokes sadness. It is just dramatic, like the type you hear when the hero faces the villain. Whereas in that scene with Simba, the legendary Hans Zimmer provided a poignant score fitting for the situation. But the case is different with Raya. Maybe even worse is the fact that we don't see the arrow pierce Sisu's body. We only see when it is entered and then watch her fall into the ocean. And to crown up the mess, they made it so that Sisu would return. A better option would have been to let Sisu's loss leave a lasting effect on both Namari and Raya, who caused her death. DreamWorks, however, is currently doing what Disney is too afraid to do. They take risks with realism that make their movies feel more mature without losing the kids. When Hiccup crashes at the end of How to Train Your Dragon and he loses his leg, at first, they do not let us see what the damage is. They were building up the tension so that we would feel the impact more when they finally showed us.
Thanks, bud.
It was a difficult and painful scene, and a permanent physical reminder of the cost of war. But they would create an even more emotionally heavy scene years later with the sequel. Following the death of Hiccup's father, we sit with the characters and mourn with them, and then we watch in sadness as Hiccup pushes Toothless away. Later, the movie gives us a long, somber Viking funeral. We watch the fire, and we feel the silence. But here's the thing that is so great about DreamWorks. They always embrace diversity with whatever they do, including scenes like these. They know that it doesn't always have to be about death to be difficult to watch. In Kung Fu Panda 3, we see what even Oogway's memory meant to Shifu when Kai destroyed Oogway's statue and the Jade Palace. We see in slow motion how the broken statue falls to the ground, with Oogway's decapitated head directly in our faces. And when the camera pans to Shifu, his face says it all. The loss of a mentor, of history, of guidance.
Oogway, forgive me.
You feel it because the movie doesn't hide it. DreamWorks knows that if you don't let the sadness breathe, the victory doesn't mean anything. They even dive into moments that are visceral and messy, moments that adults know too well. In Puss in Boots, we get a raw, grounded depiction of a panic attack. It is honest, frightening, and uncut. We watch Puss struggle through the woods, terrified of death. Then we see him hyperventilating as he lies behind a tree. And to make it even more effective, we see Perito move in to lie beside him until the anxiety fades. The scene doesn't move on until the audience has had a moment to breathe with him. This trust in letting feelings linger is why DreamWorks' heavy moments land harder and stay longer. The loss, the fear, and the grief shape the characters, the story, and even us. While Disney used to give us those unforgettable emotional punches, DreamWorks hasn't relented. But these difficult scenes hit harder when the writers can get this next thing right. In the beginning, Disney taught us that love was a magical spell that hits you like a bolt of lightning. You didn't even need to talk to the person. Snow White and her prince fall in love without really knowing each other, and Ariel literally gives up her voice and her family for a guy she had only watched from a distance. For a long time, Disney's Happily Ever After was the only story we knew, and honestly, that's not entirely a bad thing. We all need to believe that there is someone special out there waiting for us. However, as time went on, Disney did get better at this, giving us couples like Tiana and Naveen who hated each other at first and faced life-changing difficulties together. But even then, the story almost always ends the moment they say, "I do." To Disney, love is a transformation, a magical prize you win at the end of a long journey. And that's the problem. Disney is obsessed with falling in love, but they seem terrified of what it means to actually be in love. They treat romance like a fantasy where meeting the right one fixes everything in your life, whereas in the real world, finding someone is actually the easy part. The hard part is staying with them when things get messy. But here's the real issue with Disney and writing romance. Lately, it feels like they have just given up on it entirely. Their newer stories often make the men look incompetent, and the women don't have any interest in love at all. There's no romance in Wish and Raya. There's barely any in Strange World, and none in Moana and Zootopia. It's like they threw the towel in because they didn't know how to make love feel real without it being a fairy tale. This is where DreamWorks stands out. They write romance like a skill that you have to practice. They also understand romantic balance. In their movies, love is important, but it isn't the only thing that matters. Take Hiccup and Astrid in How to Train Your Dragon. The relationship isn't the main goal of the movie. Hiccup is busy trying to save dragons and find his place in the world, and at first, Astrid antagonizes him.
Stay out of my way. I'm winning this thing.
Their love grows in the background while they are busy living their lives, which is exactly how it works in reality. DreamWorks also has the guts to show us what happens after the wedding at the end of a story. In Shrek 2 and Shrek the Third, they show us the ugliness of staying in love. We see Shrek and Fiona deal with annoying in-laws, struggle with the scary thought of becoming parents, and we see them argue.
Go on, say it.
Like an ogre!
DreamWorks shows us that you can be in a healthy relationship and still have bad days. They even give us unconventional couples that Disney would never touch, like a donkey and a fire-breathing dragon who start a family of donkeys. It sends a message to kids that love doesn't have a specific look, it's just about finding someone who accepts you as you are. So, by showing the work, the arguments, and the quiet moments on the sidelines, DreamWorks proves that love is a choice you make every single day rather than just a prize. This also means that the studio cares about continuity or what happens in the future, which is why this next detail about them is so important. DreamWorks has equally taken Disney to school when it comes to making better sequels and maintaining several franchises. Disney has a few good franchises, especially through their partnership with Pixar. However, they have mostly bad ones on their own. Look at what happened with Ralph Breaks the Internet. In the first movie, Ralph's whole journey was about learning that he didn't need a medal to be a good person. He found a best friend and finally liked himself. But in the sequel, all that growth is deleted. He becomes a clingy, jealous mess who literally breaks the internet because he's scared of his friend having a life without him. And then there's Vanellope, who basically goes turbo, the one thing the first movie said was the worst crime a video game character could commit. She abandons her game and her friends, but the movie acts like she's a hero while Ralph is just a toxic bad guy. But it's even weirder when Disney tries to remake classics in live action. The 2025 Lilo & Stitch remake is a perfect example. They took a story that was famous for being messy, chaotic, and deeply emotional, and they sanitized it. They removed the heart and turned the characters into safe, boring versions of themselves. Nani, who was a totally stressed sister struggling to survive in the original film, didn't look like that anymore. They also split the role of our favorite social worker, Cobra Bubbles, reducing him to a CIA agent, while another chick took the social worker role. Not to mention how less physically intimidating and likable this new Bubbles is. DreamWorks, however, is the clear winner when it comes to world building. They build franchises with a purpose. From the very beginning, movies like Kung Fu Panda and How to Train Your Dragon were designed to be big, epic sagas. They laid a foundation in the first film so that the sequels felt natural rather than forced. In Kung Fu Panda 2, we got a deeper, darker look at Po's past that actually made the first movie better. DreamWorks sequels like Shrek 2 or Puss in Boots: The Last Wish are often considered even better than the originals because they push the characters into brand new territory instead of just repeating the same old lessons. So while Disney is busy trying to recapture lightning in a bottle by copying their old homework, DreamWorks is busy writing entirely new stuff. But even with a great story and a huge world, there is one thing that can make or break a movie before the characters even say a single word. The part about character design is tricky because it can be a subjective debate, but let's see what we can do with it. You see, when you look at a character on screen, your brain starts jumping to conclusions before you even realize it. You notice the shape of their eyes, how their hair moves in the wind, and even the way their hands grip an object. These small details are what help you decide if a character feels real or fake. Every studio has a signature look, and depending on what you value in a movie, you might find yourself drawn to one more than the other. If you look at modern Disney characters, you'll notice a very specific type of polish. They often have a squeaky clean look. Their skin is smooth, their eyes are large and expressive, and their movements are fluid and graceful. Disney also loves using very clear shape language. They use soft circles for heroes like Baymax or Olaf to make them feel safe, and sharp angular triangles for villains to make them feel dangerous. There is also a certain magical quality to their design that feels timeless, like a fairy tale come to life. Some people love this because it creates a beautiful, consistent world where everything feels perfect. DreamWorks, on the other hand, seems to enjoy breaking the rules. Instead of sticking to one perfect look, they often take big artistic risks. Think about the difference between the realistic, scaly dragons in How to Train Your Dragon and the flat, painterly style of the bad guys or Puss in Boots. They often used contours and shading to give characters more depth, making them look a bit more like they belong in our world.
He's fearless. Who am I kidding? He's crazy.
Their characters can be eccentric, funny-looking, or even ugly in a charming way, like Shrek. This style focuses more on humor and unique personality than on being pretty. So it really comes down to what catches your eye. Do you prefer the polished, glowing perfection of a Disney world that feels like a dream? Or do you like the varied, sometimes chaotic designs of DreamWorks that try to show how different everyone can be? It's all up to you. But while DreamWorks might escape many of the issues that Disney has, this next video here shows us that even DreamWorks villains who are written as smart still face some huge problems.